What's up, my friends out there in ministry land? Daryl D coming to you, not live, pre-recorded. So this video is for in response to a young lady who is asked. She's a chastity educator going into the schools and high schools, and I should have asked if it's Catholic or not Catholic, but she wants to be grounded in. Because she's dealing with such issues as identity, self-respect, pornography, abortion, contraception, and ultimately why the church teaches the things she does. So I'm assuming she's going to Catholic schools. And so one thing I noticed is she's looking for the practical applications. And I said, hey, man, there's many approaches. Which ones are you considering? So she writes to me, she goes, well, our purpose is to be fairly direct in tackling chastity, especially with our 7th through high schoolers, as well as to explain to them what abortion is, how to handle things like pornography when students encounter it. Unfortunately, it's no longer an if, it's a when. Allow them to ask tough questions and set students on fire for being holy and becoming the people God created them to be. So she's looking for some best practices, and people have been in ministry longer. Fair enough. We have a lot of interactive questions, answers, and candidate rewards. So Sarah, this is what I'm going to say to you after many years in ministry and dealing with this. Is I love the fact that you said I want to be direct. Being direct is the best way to handle these topics. The pornography, the abortion, all the crap in our world is so direct and in our kids' face. So what I found healthy is to be in their face with this stuff, and I say this not in a. You have to be careful of your approach, right? So the approach we take is so important that it can turn people on or off, right? There's a swoop and poop mentality where if we just come and swoop in like a seagull and poop theology and church teaching all over these kids, they'll get it. That's not what they need. So what I found is, especially number one, is I would separate the two groups. I don't know the dynamics, but separating the boys and the girls. Girls talk to girls, boys talk to boys. As a young lady, you could talk to men about this. That's good. One of the cool things that I found very, very helpful is to, number one, find a common ground. Make sure that they all know what you're talking about. And this is getting them to say it. Right? I like to lead from where they are. So for example, we will say, I said to, the group of boys, so what's the first thing you notice about a girl? And, all of a sudden, especially these 8th grade boys will start giggling and then they'll whisper to each other, right? And so my colleague and I'll be like, okay, if the first thing you notice about girls are butt, and all of a sudden it's like, they just kind of, oh my gosh, they kind of break down. I go like, look, we're here to be real. And I always quote Ephesians 4:15, and that says, speak the truth with love. And so my first goal is to get all the kids to speak the truth. Why? Because they're all saying it. They're all talking about it behind my back and behind the adults' back, right? They're talking amongst each other's. And so what's awkward for them is to speak that truth in front of us. But if we can get them to speak that truth, number one, then what happens is it creates this camaraderie and this kind of like, it defizzles the embarrassment and the secrecy. It's like, okay, hey, we're talking about this and we're talking about it like adults. That's the first mindset I get with them is we're speaking the truth and let's just talk about these. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, so, and we actually, the principal of the school, we got pulled in because the parent had a problem with this, is we said, so do you notice the girl's boobs? Okay. And the boys are like, ah. And again, this is talking to a group of boys specifically. And we took that approach because we want the boys to know that God designed men to be visual. Right? Men are visually stimulated, hence the pornography epidemic. They look at it. So we kind of want our young men to see, how are we wired? How did God wire it? And there's nothing wrong with being visually stimulated, right? If that's how we're wired. The problem is, how do we use that? Are we wired and only looking at that girl from a objective physical standpoint? Are we just looking at her boobs and her butt? And this is the conversation I have with the kids. I ask these questions. I said, because isn't she more than that? Right? And I lead them from the physical to the spiritual. And I say, I'll share with them things like, hey, she's a soul. So when you visually look at a woman, can you see her hopes and her dreams? No, but thank God you looked at her because you noticed her. There's something about her you liked. So and I tell them the challenges as a man of God is to get past that first step of visual stimulation and start look at who she is. And something else we do is then at the end, I challenge these guys, the men, I challenge them and say, look, it's your job to affirm the young women who are dressing as what the world called prude, right? The women who cover themselves up and dress modestly, and I talk about modesty and chastity, right? I said, your job is to affirm that because these sisters in Christ, and I refer to sisters in Christ, are struggling in this world because what they're saying is, oh, let me dress skimpy. Let me just show you my body. That's all I have. And as men of God, our job is to affirm these women in modest dress and pay more attention, give more attention to the women who are dressed modestly. This is the conversation I have with the men. So, and in my youth group, when some of the girls, and this is more so, I always try to have, women talk to women but sometimes, I've had to give a group, the presentation and it's mixed and there is, and girls, and sometimes even to a group of girls. I'm like, look, women, guys will give you a line, right? You're stimulated. Women fall in love with their ears. Guys fall in love with their eyes. And so we talk about these lines. And we talk about the things we believe. And we talk about that we are more than just a body to flaunt. And that the popular culture wants you just to say, oh, I have nothing to offer. I'm just a body. So let me show you all my skin. And sadly, right, even some of the outfits today, the designers are designing clothes that's very hard to be modest. I get it. And it's okay to dress modestly. I said, and also we have a responsibility, the women have a responsibility to dress modestly because men fall in love with their eyes, right? They're visually stimulated. So don't provoke the men's, mental stupid cycle by dressing in a way that's going to trigger in a negative way, the men's eyes and attraction, right? And focusing just on that, right? When I say, hey, if you wear something scantily, oh, well, look at me, I'm just a pair of boobs. Look, they're hanging out. I said, so, and I talk about the reality of that with these kids because they all know what's going on. They all talk about it. They all share. And that's like one piece of that pie. The other piece of the pie is, we do talk about when you get to abortion, when you talk about, sex before marriage, I use it as a mathematical equation, right? You have, multiplication and division come before addition and subtraction. And there's an order of operations. You get married, sacramental marriage between a man and a woman. Then you have a child. And God has an order of operations for that. And so what happens is, when you follow God's plan, it's amazing at what happens. There's really, if two virgins marry each other, I just be honest, I say, look, there's almost no percent of sexually transmitted diseases. Married couples love to have their kids. Then I talk about abortion. I say things like, well, I use the words. I'm like, look, guys, when did a child become a choice? And let's say for abortion, and that particular issue, I'm not sure if that's the one you wanted to. I think we said pornography. I'm looking up here. What did you say? Oh my gosh. Pregnancy center. Okay. One of the things the kids I ask is I always talk about softeners, right? Water softener. Call it what it is. And if you go back to Genesis chapter 1, what was it, chapter 2? It's one of the accounts of Genesis where God brought the animals to the man and said whatever the man named, it was his name. Is we are called to name things, right? So abortion is murder, right? Premarital sex is, adultery, breaks the sixth command, right? Sex is good. It has a place in marriage. And if you misuse it, it's like a pencil, right? A pencil is used for writing. That's why it's created. If you stab something with a pencil, it's being misused and horrible. It's not working. So I guess with abortion, maybe I'm going off here. I'm sorry if I missed it. With the abortion issue, I always ask, okay, when a couple is saying, hey, we're pregnant, and we say, what is it? We don't say, is it a human being? You're going to give birth to a polar bear. We know it's a human being. Is it male or female? Right? Because a human sperm and human egg equal a human being. And these are just all things that I get them to philosophically think about, that it's common sense. All I do is try to get them into common sense. So what do we do, especially with pornography with the young men and how to handle that? is, we don't just say stay away. We say stay away. But we also say, as brothers in Christ, we have an obligation to help each other and to show things and talk about things that are holy in nature, that are wholesome and healthy. And I even talk about especially with pornography. There's a couple great videos out there, documentaries that I think if you look up Michael Knowles, just recently on YouTube, has an interview with a gentleman who was in the porn industry. And what's fascinating is that this guy actually I hate the word star because you're not a star in that industry, but he was very popular, and how he lost himself and how that industry is based upon lies. And how in one documentary, it's called, I forgot the name of the documentary, but I have to look it up. But it's very fascinating where one lady left the porn industry. She became a real estate agent, a realtor, and moved in this town. Well, all of a sudden, they have their porn name, and then they have like their real name. And she got out of the industry, and somebody at the school where her kids went said, "I know who you are." Yeah, I'm Susie the realtor. What do you mean? You know who I am? No, I know who you are. And basically it kind of drove her out of town because of her past job. So I always say, what other industry do people have to run and hide and change their name? What other industry do we try to put away? I mean, I also talk about the suicide statistics of the young women and young men and that commit suicide based upon being in the porn industry. And what other industry, if let's say all the teachers, right? If also there's a huge rate of teacher suicides, like government people are coming out, what is wrong? What is wrong? But in the porn industry, they don't do that. Right? What they do is they do a montage to celebrate the work of this person. Right? It's a perversion. It's lies. But so I show them especially the young men. This is huge for the young men, and the women too need to hear, but more so the young boys, is that, look, guys, this is based upon lies, and I show them how sick those lies are. So I mean, I don't know at what level. This was 8th grade, but it's about. My suggestion is be real, talk terminology. I don't always necessarily focus on body parts and everything, but I do want to make sure we have a common language that we know, that the boys know, or the girls know, like, look, this is what we're talking about. And we're talking about it in an adult, scientific, matter-of-fact way. Because the kids in their emotional insecurity, right, they'll giggle about it, snicker. And that distracts. So you need to say, okay, hey, well, let's get past this. Let's just get past this. So, Sara, I'm going to post this on YouTube. Let me know if this helps. I'm going to send you a link, and let me know if this helps. If you have any questions, hit me up. You can hit me on my Facebook. I'm more than happy. For anybody else out there, how do you talk to young people? You can come check it out. I have you can check out our book called Failing Forward. It's more about leadership for teens and how to lead. And there's some kind of a methodology in which we use, in which we challenge our kids. We always leave our kids with a challenge. And that's neither here nor there, but it's always something good to read. And it's very practical. But I think with this, I don't know, games. I just don't necessarily do games with the kids on this topic. I think just treating them like an adult, talking like an adult, and saying, hey, this is what this is, and this is where we're kind of gone wrong. And get the kids, get the kids to share their experience, or get the kids to at least acknowledge the problem, acknowledge that pornography is out there, that pornography is not out there for them, that yeah, they've seen it, right? Raise your hand. How many have seen it? How many's been shown by somebody else? Raise your hand. Right? I mean, it's everywhere, right? How many seen a billboard and you kind of pick something that's out there that people have seen? And so what you're letting them know is, listen, I'm here to enter your experience. Let's all talk about the same experience. Let's not BS each other. Let's not blow smoke up each other's nose. Let's not just be vanilla. Let's get down to it. All right, let me know if this helps, my friend. Thank you for posting on this and asking that question. God bless you. Good luck.